Good day, and welcome to the Budding Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Randy Bridges. In each episode, I cover my experiences, both good and bad, of being a business builder, as well as my journey through the crazy world of entrepreneurship to reach my goal of earning $10 million a year. All right. We're on episode 114 this month. Is the month of September. It's the third week, so we are in mid-mode of the month review. Starting to kind of turn the page a little bit, going into the last week of the month where we're going to actually do the planning for next month and finalizing the things that we need to do right now. So I want to talk a little bit more later on about what's happening this week. Right now, the books that I'm still working on are the $100 Million Leads by Alex Hormozi. I'm going to hold off on the $100 million offers because that book, it's a next step, if you will, to what's going on with the leads, and I'm going to want to implement that. It's going to stay on my calendar. It's going to stay on my radar for what I'm looking at. But I'm looking at doing a lot more implementation of the leads book. And while I'm doing that, I'm also implementing many of the things that came from Taylor Welch's The Wealthy Consultant book. These are great tactics. These are great strategies to put in play as much of your business as you can. If you're working in the space that is working with people, maybe you're a coach, maybe you're a life coach, what have you, many of these same strategies and tactics and implementation pieces are going to be critical in your business. But definitely, we as business owners have to have leads in order to make sales. So between the two, I'm actually doing a lot of implementation throughout the rest of this month. Now, speaking of this month, I'm looking still at the client journey map. I've been building this. I'm now on my second page. This is all the way through the proposal process. And that's a great thing. But now my implementation strategy next for what I'm focusing on is the onboarding side of things. This is something that is near and dear to my heart. I am an operational person by nature. So the onboarding process is going to be a great step for me because it's going to put the pressure on being able to deliver the program and get it to the right people. The onboarding process is going to help them start understanding the overall strategy of what we're trying to accomplish. And so that's going to be part of the onboarding, is this forward-looking idea of literally day one, here's what you're going to deal with. Day two, week one, month one, and start planning out this whole process of where people are going to be going through the different challenges that they might be facing. And let's face it, any kind of a program that's new to you is going to generate a certain amount of resistance because you don't know. This is all new material and you have to be able to put it together. That's where the client journey map is standing right now. We're at the onboarding phase. Also this month, I'm still working on my marketing KPIs, and I'm starting to develop some KPIs for different aspects of the business. Key performance indicators is the KPI for those of you who don't know. And doing KPIs are lead indicators of what's going on as opposed to lag indicators. Lag indicators might be revenue, they might be profit. They're the result of what you've done in advance and then what you've done during. So that's a great thing. I'm looking at those KPIs, keeping things on the ball, doing a daily review of them. I'm already starting to build my KPIs for the marketing for the month of October. The last thing that we are looking at this month, and I talked about this a bit, is models. And I went to ChatGPT to just get some clarification about where models and frameworks work together. Models are frameworks. They can and usually have a process of problem solution. So if you can identify the problem and you can identify the solution, that gives you the ability to process other pieces of the puzzle. Basically, models are processes. You want to understand they fit within a framework. So models are answering the question of what the problem is, and they're answering how might we solve that based upon a set of parameters that are changing as you go. This kind of clarification was good for me because my idea of models was a little more simplified. I thought models were more in the front end of things, but as I found out and done some of the other studies that are going on, models are a framework. They're part of a framework, and they're the process that is going to get you to the next place that you're trying to get to. Looking forwards and backwards on the week. This particular week, there are 3 things going on. I've been doing it in the last week, and I'll be doing it into next week as well. We talked about the onboarding process. I'm building the onboarding framework for my program, and it's more of a platform than a program. And I have to kind of revisit a lot of my language throughout all of my documentation and realize that this is an onboarding process for a platform. There might be different areas that people go into, some of them for newer people, some of them for more established people, some of them for the people that really have a challenge and they just don't know where to begin. So the initial onboarding is prepping them for what direction are we going to be going. And that framework is what I was talking about in the client journey map, is what will that framework look like? I'm also building a framework on market research and reaching out to a couple of different people who focus on market and process research. This is key because a lot of business owners have come to me with a great idea that's almost like pie in the sky. They can't afford it. They're not prepared for it. It's way beyond anything they can deliver. So we have to pull it back into something that makes sense. Now, market research isn't really a great thing for every business owner to do. Some people just don't have the patience for it, and I understand that. When I first began in business, I didn't understand why you would do market research either. Just because you're a business owner or a business partner doesn't mean you understand the implications of what somebody else is trying to help you to achieve. I'm starting the process of building checklists for market research so we understand what we need to collect. And I'm reaching out to people to do that collection for those who actually have the money to make that happen. And we want to be able to build an idea, take an intent of what we want our business to look like. And we want to then find the research that proves that that intent is worthwhile. Once we get that, we want to build these checklists to be able to collect that information. Then we want to coordinate that with the research that's going on so business owners understand the implication of what they're being handed when they do this. And also for those who are prepared to be able to do the market research on their own, this gives them a framework for being able to work within. And there we are with yet another framework. I started building a document that's geared to be able to answer, is whatever this part we're dealing with, is it right for me? And that's something that gets handed to a prospect, giving them an idea of what the bigger picture is of what they're getting into beforehand. We want to literally separate out the people that aren't going to want to do this. We want to separate in the people that are. And yet there's a big chunk right in the middle that aren't really going to know one way or another until they get the bigger picture of what is happening here, what is coming, and what is going to be expected of them should they decide to go forward. And then, what to expect in a vetting process, what to expect in the process after you're vetted. You may still not be chosen to come into the program. It might be there's not enough room, there's not enough time. We want to try to eliminate that up front if we can. But right now, I'm on the 3rd revision of my document. Now, looking at the Alex Hormozi $100 million leads book, he's talking about referrals, but it brings to mind something that is fitting within this particular third revision and now the fourth is looking at the overall path that we want to do and setting expectations up front. That's part of what this kind of a document is designed to do. You want to make sure that you can under-promise and over-deliver. That's been a mantra for years, and I've used it many, many times here. But if I give too much information away, if I give too much in this document, I might be setting myself up for some unrealistic expectations. So this fourth revision is going to be going through and taking a look at it from that point of view, recognizing on a balance that anything that you plan or you want to do, if it doesn't scare you at least a little bit, you're not doing enough. You can't provide enough value for people. You can't provide enough of what they need, and you're going to try to play it safe. And that's not a good place to be. When you're trying to help somebody or you're trying to go through, I know that when I've gone through programs, I want to understand not just how I fit into the program, but what's going to come to me. What am I going to gain that's going to be above and beyond what I'm promised? This was the thing that kind of held me back originally from the traffic and funnels program. Going into that is I just didn't understand what else I was going to get. I didn't see the back end, the far end, right? There wasn't enough of a picture painted for me to understand what I can do with it. It was, here's training, and I'm like, okay, that doesn't quite fit my needs. But when I saw the Launch Kit program and started taking a look into that, that was different. You're painting a picture of what a good consultant is looking like on the far end. Then there's a process you're going to go through to achieve that on the far end. I'm looking at this fourth revision as, how do I balance those two things? I want to exceed expectations. I'd rather hold them down a little bit and overachieve than I would to give them too much and fall short. And that's something that a lot of people are concerned about. When you're building this, you don't want to cause people to go, wow, I really wish I hadn't done that, because then they're not going to refer you, number one. Number two, you're going to have some issues with people wanting their money back. Number three, you yourself have nowhere to go. If you've put a 100-mile race out there in front of yourself and you get up to around mile 97 or 98 and you can't get that last 2 miles out of what you're doing, you have to kind of think about that as being a failure. And I know I would. But if I say it's a 50-mile race and I'm willing to drive 75 miles just because, the people are going to look at that and go, wow, he went the extra distance to make sure everything worked right. You're balancing this. Anytime you're trying to do things, you're balancing it. And I'm doing this, like I said, this is going to be the fourth revision. And it wasn't easy to start, but now it's easy to start finalizing and pulling it down and getting clearer and more succinct on the ideas I'm trying to present and making sure that I can over-deliver on those. The final thing for this week, and this is less of a framework, less of a deliverable, this is the lead magnet concept. Going back into Hormozy and some of the others, and I mentioned this last week, your lead magnet is something that you can deliver quickly, easily, and it delivers a ton of value. I've been combining many different things. I ran into John Pemberthy. I've dealt with his material before. He's a great guy. He's out of England. He's got a unique concept in how he handles things. He uses auto webinars for most of his work. And I'm looking at some other options here to be able to help me get that auto webinar concept in play. The idea is that auto webinar becomes your lead magnet. But instead of being here, I'm going to train you to do this one little thing. You're going to provide a ton of value and no ask. Most of the people that do webinars, it's a sales pitch. You know it. You can smell it. You can feel it right from the very beginning. It is a sales pitch. But what happens if your webinar or your lead magnet is not designed for a sales pitch? It's instead designed for simply a sales call. Not the sales call that you would think. Again, you're still not selling anything. But now we get into the point where the auto webinar now becomes part of my process. Do we do a triage call? And after the triage call, do we do a longer form meeting? We're still not selling anything. We're trying to help somebody make the best decision for themselves. You see how this process kind of works out? You have a lead magnet that delivers a ton of value, and the only option is that you can, or you don't have to, make a phone call. The phone call is simply the triage. We're going to look at, are they prepared to move forward? Are they sort of prepared to move forward, but they don't have enough information to do so? Maybe they don't have enough experience. Or are they simply not prepared for a longer form meeting? Are they not prepared to move forward? That triage separates people, and when you can start implementing other training, videos, concepts, blog posts, you can do podcasts and have people review them, you can direct them over to those as needed in the triage phase. Now then, after triage goes to the longer form meeting. And so the purpose there is, again, to solve problems, help that prospect be able to get a free taste of what it is to work with you. Keep in mind, your webinar was free. Your triage is free. Your longer form meeting is free. But the key to all of that is they're now spending time. Remember, it's time or money. You can trade both if you want. But in a case like this, we're providing an upfront set of free things that are helping us, helping that prospect, helping everybody move forward in the direction that's right for them. So this is how I'm working this week. A lot of frameworks, as you can see. I'll probably be working on all of this for the rest of the month. I'm looking at a couple of people to help me provide for the process in that auto webinar as a lead magnet, and also some other lead magnets as well. It's not enough that you just do one. You have to be willing to do several, and you can test them, maybe one for 3 months, see how it runs. Maybe another one you start for 3 months, but you started a month later. And then you start a third one a month later, and each of these run for 3 months. You collect your information back of how many people responded to it, how many were there for it, were they engaged in it, did they leave early because there wasn't enough? Do your own market research. Just to understand, and this was a hard thing for me, is to understand that I need to do my own market research. I need to validate what it is I'm putting out there to the market to see what's the response. And sometimes it takes a while to get that response back. I was doing really well on Alignable as a platform for social and dealing with, business questions and things like this. And all of a sudden, everything dived off because I changed my process of what I was doing. I wanted to hold it for a few weeks, see how it worked, and then go back to what I really wanted to be doing and see how that's working. And it's giving me some feedback, not a ton, because there's not as much interaction. I'm not in all the groups that I was. I'm now doing more posting of my own. This is similar to how I'm doing things on Facebook. I'm doing multiple simple posts during the week. And with Facebook, I'm doing a group post about every 2 or 3 days. That's just the standard process that you're going to want to do. You generally post something almost every single day. And you combine all of this, and maybe you do a blog post and you simply put in this word in order for me to send you the link over to my blog post. Then you can read it. And occasionally, people will actually do that. They'll say, yeah, I want whatever that word is. And they'll put it in, and then you have to do your part by sending them the actual link. Now they're into your material. Now they can be engaged. Now they can take it and use it as they need to. And that's the thing that I've learned about a lot of this organic posting. But what it really comes down to is you're doing the process of making yourself a better known professional. You're not just a fly-by-night person. The more posts that you're delivering, the more leverage you have that you know what's going on. That then leads to a lot more flexibility with people, and they might then want to actually engage with more of your material. And if you can do this in a like a spider web pattern where one thing leads to 2 or 3 other things, and then each of those leads to 2 or 3 other things, chances are pretty good you're going to be getting the kind of engagement that you want and need that comes from delivering all of this information. And somewhere in there, your blog posts, maybe on your website, maybe on certain other aspects of things, you're posting material in other places besides social media, and again, driving people to there via an indirect method. That 2-step process avoids a lot of issues with things from places like Alignable and Facebook that say you can't really link off to another place. Well, I'm not linking off. If somebody sends me a post, replies to a post or sends me a direct message with that request, then I'm not really doing a post of that link off-site. I'm giving them the information because they asked for it. And so you get a much more engaged audience by doing that. So real quick, kind of a review here before we head out. We're a little over 20 minutes right now. My books, I'm still working through $100 million Leads and The Wealthy Consultant. I have paused the $100 million offers from Alex Hormozy. Going to leave that to probably next month, just simply because I want to implement many of the things that are happening in the books that I'm reading. Still going through for this month on the client journey map, the marketing KPIs, and the models that I want to implement within my business. This week, we're looking at frameworks such as onboarding and market research. I'm looking at my document that's designed to be kind of a clarification of what my process is going to be overall, limiting it down to a really good, tight message. And I am on my 4th revision. I expect probably 5 or 6 revisions, just simply because that's the way that it works off of time. And finally, this week, I'm looking into the lead magnet process of an auto webinar, kind of using the ideas from Taylor Welch, kind of using the ideas from John Pemberthy, and even people off of Facebook like Ella Winter. She's great. She's out of England, out of the UK, and she has a really unique concept that she's presenting. So I want to kind of blend all these together into something that I feel confident in presenting. Okay, so that's enough for the Budding Entrepreneur podcast. Wishing you the best in your health, your wealth, your family, your business, everything about you. Take care. We'll talk to you next week as we wrap up for the month of September.